Last time on the Zodiac Academy, The Awakening, the girls went to werewolf class, and Julian's brain nearly broke. We got some hints about the nymph conflict that barely matters. Surprise, surprise, the girls were not werewolves. Tory, I think, witnessed a clandestine meeting of the hot boys, and we learned basically nothing, except for that one of them likes to pee in the woods. She also witnessed a second meeting with the hot boy and Professor O'Brien, and she becomes suspicious. Alright, we're back with a Tory chapter. Hopefully it won't be too long and I won't have to change the memory card. But let's give it a shot. So Tory has managed to avoid the boys so far. Good for her. But she knows she's going to get bitten eventually because that one vampire guy was like, she's mine. She gets her horoscope, but we skip over it. We don't actually get to read it because, way more important, her order of clothing has come in. It's a good thing that Fairyland has Amazon because her order is here. So initially I thought that the daily horoscopes were going to be a thing, that they were going to continue throughout the story, that they were going to be a theme. But in reality, we get about 3 of them, and then the authors seem to get completely bored and just stop. So, further proof that I feel like these authors didn't really care about anything that they were writing and just threw down cool ideas, and if they got bored of it, they got bored of it, and didn't bother to go in and fix anything. I had to read this sentence 3 times. I guess the student post was delivered via unicorn farts or whatever their version of a postie was. Does anyone actually call their mail person a postie? That sounds British to me. Like, have you seen the postie? Yeah, a quick Google search reveals that postie is a term used in the UK, Ireland, Australia, and New Zealand. We do not use it in the United States, and definitely not in Wisconsin, and Illinois. Illinois, where the girls are supposed to be from. If you're not going to even bother, having somebody from the United States go through and get rid of your British isms, because now I'm convinced that these women are from the UK, and I'll research that more later. If you're not going to even bother, then just it makes me so mad. They didn't even try. Don't have your characters be from Chicago if you don't even know that your book is filled with British-isms that Chicago people would never say. And the most infuriating part is that the girls being from Chicago doesn't even matter. The entire story takes place in weird fairyland. Why are they from the United States? Why weren't they just from the UK? Do you want to pretend that you don't have criminals in the UK and that's why these girls had to be from Chicago? What? Why? Why anything? I have so many questions. Of course, while she's getting her mail, one of the hot guys, Darius, the one from the woods, shows up because why wouldn't he? These girls can't go anywhere without encountering obnoxious hot guys. She's like, okay, well, you're here, you might as well drink my blood. You're gonna anyway. But then she says that she hates that she's been avoiding them instead of facing them. And it's like, no, do not feel shame for that. Do not feel shame for keeping yourself out of harm's way. You are doing what you should be doing. You are protecting yourself. And if that means avoiding these obnoxious guys who are way more powerful than you and want to do you harm, then that's what you gotta do. Don't feel bad because you're not fighting them in one-on-one combat. She insults his rich father. He gets all uppity about it, probably because we're hinting at a sad boy backstory that will totally make us forgive him for being a total douchebag all the time. I know we look so much better than you, but fit hot guys have problems too. So she sasses back and tells him that she's not afraid of him, and he's just like, cool, for some reason I admire you for this. He helps her get her mail because the mail system is magic based and she didn't know how to use it. Yet another thing that she was never instructed how to do. This gives her a chance to swoon over how attractive he is and the fact that his fingertips touched hers when he took her tablet to make it do the necessary magic things. Oh good, we didn't get away without him bullying her. He grabs one of her packages and of course it's a lingerie company and he is taunting her with it. To the point where she's like, I'm just gonna leave, he can have all my new clothes, I don't care. Even though just seconds ago she was being like, I'm a badass, I'm so tough, I'm not afraid of you. And I get that now she's rich because she has her parents' money, which is hilarious because she was making fun of him a few seconds ago for his family having money, but she's got her parents' money so she can abandon her new clothes. But I can tell you right now that if you grew up poor, that is not an easy thing to shake. She would not so easily abandon her new clothing just because she has money to buy more. Because those instincts, when you are growing up low income, when you have nothing, those instincts run deep, deep, deep. You purchase those things, those are your things, you're gonna get them. Especially in a situation like this, where she was just telling him off, and she was feeling pretty brave about him, and now all of a sudden she's just like, no, never mind, I've decided that I am afraid of him again. He decides it's boring to steal her clothes, and now he leaves. But she drops off her purchases in her room, and then she heads off to her first Earth Elemental class. These kids seem to have about one class a day. They obviously have uniforms for this class as well, and just when I thought maybe they would get something a bit more practical, like coveralls or something, for Earth class, no, they get booty shorts and tank tops. Guess what their professor for Earth class is called? Professor Rockford. Anyway, Professor Rockford is like, okay, you get to go down into this cave, and it's a maze, and you will use your Earth powers to guide you. I'm already so bored of this chapter. I'm like, how many pages is it? But oh no, it's Geraldine and their followers here to be helpful, which we hate. I was a foster kid from the rougher part of town. Just something about the rougher part of town, not the bad side of the tracks or even the rough side of town, the rougher side of town, slightly more rough than the other side. But she's not like other girls, just so you know. She never wanted to wear princess dresses like girls are supposed to. She wanted to work on cars and was more interested in watching speedway races than Disney movies. She is so unique and special. I do need to make a video, and maybe I already have, who knows, about the not like other girls and like the trope in itself, and is that trope bad? Not necessarily. It's when a character behaves as though when she doesn't have common feminine interests, she's the only person in the entire universe who doesn't. In reality, if she asked this room full of other girls how many of them thought they wanted to be princesses when they grew up, there would be plenty of other girls here who said, I didn't want to be a princess. I too wanted to be a mechanic, or I too wanted to do something stereotypically masculine. You're not that special. You just have a very narrow frame of reference. I don't like the not like other girls trope when it's used to perpetuate like girl hate and also the diminishing of feminine activities as bad or negative. Because when you do that, the patriarchy wins. Interests are interests. They are not inherently better or worse if they happen to fall into one or the other gender binaries. So they tell Geraldine and all of the other girls that Geraldine has brought with her that like Darcy and Tory, they don't want to be worshipped. They want to be treated like everybody else. And wouldn't these girls rather be their friends instead of their followers? And it's like, yeah, that sentiment is great, except for they're using it to try to get rid of these girls. And Darcy ends up getting like hugged. So Tory leaves looking very cheeky while Darcy rolls her eyes, because friendship with these people is also undesirable. Immediately, of course, I mean, we saw this coming for miles. Darcy goes, we're with Darcy, right? I can't remember already. Is this Darcy or Tory? No, we're with Tory. Tory goes down one of the tunnels, and immediately she is found by werewolf boy Seth, who is getting touchy-feely, because that's just how werewolves are. They're touchy-feely. And then Caleb shows up, and blah, 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 mean boys. We have a very similar sequence to what happened with Darcy, where Caleb, who's the vampire guy, I can't keep track of these guys, is like, you're mine, and she's like, no, I'm not, and he's like, actually, yes, you are, and you have to agree to it, and then she agrees to it. For the same reason, she's like, well, this will keep the other vampires off me. And then she's like, fine, I know you're here to bite me, so go ahead and bite me. And of course, because this guy has to be completely irredeemable, he's like, it's not fun if you consent. So Caleb decides that the thing to do is grab her and toss her over his shoulder and run off with her. And she thinks for a minute that maybe she might like Geraldine and those followers that she has acquired to come help her. And it's like, yeah, maybe if you stop treating them like garbage. Now, of course, we cannot forget that even as she's been snatched and bodily carried away against her will, she does find his dimples very attractive. He also makes a creepy sexual innuendo, and she's turned on by it. So the guys take her to a giant pit of stalactites that are sticking up from the floor, a spiky pit of doom. And it seems like they're going to push her into it. And she thinks, holy shit on a starfish. Sometimes I wonder about these authors and like some of the turns of phrase that they choose. It seems like they might just be rolling dice and just picking words at random. I can't remember, is Tory the one? No, Tory uses fire, not wind. She has access to wind though, so she could probably stop herself falling onto the spikes. Again, these girls have such great powers that come in handy at such random times that I'm not as worried about her as I could be, because it's like I know she can save herself. It's just going to be whether the authors feel like having her do it at any given moment. So they start to dangle her over the spikes. Apparently she needs her hands to cast magic, which I didn't think was a thing. Like, there's been no mention of necessary hand movements to cast magic. But she's like, the guys are holding onto my hands, so I can't use magic as they dangle me off of this cliff. Also, there's mention of her coercion practice with Darcy and Sophia, but we haven't seen any of that. So, like, you can tell us that they learned to do whatever, and we have to believe you because you didn't show us. But conveniently, she seems to have learned enough in that coercion practice that they totally have been doing that she tells the boys to pull her up. And they do, and it works, and the guys are like, whoa, she's really powerful. So she did use her magic to save herself, and she is still the most powerful one. So we're right to never actually fear for her life. And then they do pull her up, but then she tries again, and they're like, haha, nice try, you got us by surprise last time. And then the vampire guy just starts to drink her blood, or her magic, or whatever. Just having these girls be annoyed with how the boys behave. Like, she's annoyed that they're treating her like an object, but that's not enough in a book like this. Like, you don't get to claim that your characters are, like, so strong if all they ever do is just be like, hey, I'm annoyed. Feminism. I'm annoyed that you're treating me this way. It might sound like I'm being victim blaming, but the thing is, we're looking at this from the perspective of fellow authors, and everything that happens in this book is a choice made by a writer for this fictional scenario. This is not a real life situation, if that wasn't made obvious by the vampires or the werewolves. So everything that happens, everything that these boys do, and every way that these girls react was a choice. And quite frankly, it is just overflowing with internalized misogyny. This idea that the only option you have if you're being harassed is to just be slightly annoyed about it. And yeah, in real life it can feel like that sometimes, and you can be in a situation where you really don't have a way out, but that's not this. This is this weird fictional world where we're supposed to simultaneously believe that these two girls are the most strong, the most special, the most awesome, and also just absolutely surrounded by this level of just overt misogyny that they're just slightly annoyed by. My memory card's running out, but I'm almost done with this chapter, so let's go. And then he finishes drinking her blood, and then the boys just kind of josh each other a little bit, and then they run off. And she thinks, somehow I've managed to escape the interaction fairly unscathed and can only hope that I could say the same next time. They dangled you over a cliff, and then one of them did indeed drink your blood. But yes, you escaped this fairly unscathed. Sure, like, what even is this bullshit? Like, I get it. If this is the kind of nonsense you're in the mood to read, it's what you're in the mood to read. But, like, woof. Just, wow. All right, memory card's running out, but that's the end of the chapter. I'll see you for the next chapter.
Oh hey, real quick, it's Editor Julian again, just here to remind you that my developmental services are still a thing. If you've written a book and you want to make sure that you don't have, like, loose ends hanging around, like perhaps at the beginning of the book you had daily horoscopes that seem like they would matter and then you forget about them halfway through, you might not notice that yourself. You're too close to the book. But someone else could notice it for you, and I could be that someone else. And I will let you know if there are things like this so you can eliminate them before your book is published.
Hi, hello. I just got done walking the dog, which is why my glasses are dark, but I took her for an early walk, and usually after I walk the dog, I feed the cats, but we went early today, but the cats don't know that, so they think, oh, you walked the dog, it's time for dinner. So if you're wondering why the cats are being insane, I'm so needy right now. That's why. But we're back for more. Oh my goodness, Nigel, it is not dinner time. Ignore the meows. We're back with Darcy. I also have some Doritos. Let's go. So, look how much book we have. It is only Friday. They have gotten to Friday. They have been here, I think, a week at most. So much book has gone by. And that's because every single day, we have to watch them every day. Each chapter is a day in their life. Often the same day repeated for the next sister. And they're all the same. They're all the goddamn same. There's no escalation. There's no building tension. It's all up here the entire time. So if you want to study a book for pacing, for rising tension and action, this is not the book for you. So here's a phrase that I have never once used in any of my books. Read my books and prove me a liar if you want to. But I've not used this phrase, and I've seen this phrase in a lot of these more novice novels. So I haven't really seen it anywhere from the pros, if you will, but the more novice writers. And I've seen it enough times where I'm noticing it now. She's looking out the window as students wound along the paths, laughing and talking as they headed to who knew where for the evening. That specific phrase, heading to who knew where, heading to who knows where, while watching side characters go about their day. I don't know why novice writers are using that. Maybe it's just because they don't want to be specific. It's Friday night, so have the character be like they were headed towards the cafeteria, which I forget what it's called, the Orb, I think. They were headed off of campus, and I was curious where. And if you don't have that information, or you don't want to have that information, then skip the part where she's watching the students go who knew where.
Or, another option, if you want to describe the students, but you're not sure where you're having them go, or the main character's not sure where you're having them go, bring it back around to the main character. She watched the students coming and going and wondered where they could be headed to. You know, make her an active participant. Make her do the wondering instead of the who knew where vagary. Or just like not mention where they're going. The students milled around the campus. The students moved busily around the campus like ants. Like, there's so many ways to avoid this phrase, and I'm just seeing it more and more from inexperienced authors.
Ah, the friend peripherals are here. It's too bad I got rid of Sexy Lamp, because that's both of them. These are the side characteriest of side characters. Forget about being paper. These guys are made out of, like, used candy bar wrapper rolling in a ditch. Like, they're nothing. There's nothing to their characters. They exist to just be around and be nice to the main characters. And be racial stereotypes in the case of Diego. But yes, Diego and Sophia are here hanging out in her room.
Hola, Diego!
Oh, Tory is there as well. First of all this dialogue and the dialogue tags to go with them sound really similar, so watch out for this. We could go off campus, Diego suggested. Off campus, I asked, my stomach fluttering at the idea. How? Tory demanded, her eyes bright. I have a card, Diego shrugged, and I jumped up and down. Let's go, I ran forward, grabbing my bag. They all sound the same. The character says something, and then we get an action from them, or a quick description like her eyes bright. But also, let's go, I ran forward. You know how I feel about that. Instead, you could say, let's go, I ran to grab my bag. That is far more helpful than I ran forward. Unless we know where this character is oriented in the room, I ran forward means nothing, and unless they're running backwards or sideways, you do not need to tell us which direction they ran. I know that's a pet peeve of mine, but it just annoys the crap out of me. The girls do a quick makeover sequence because they have to look hot. We get a little reminder that Darcy is the clumsy one because she's wearing lighter high heels than her sister. Yeah, we're definitely pairing the spares with Diego and Sophia. They have a crush on each other. They just exist to pump up the girls and then have a crush on each other. Let's go then, chicas, he said, leading the way. Please stop. Hope I found a typo. Unless this is on purpose, but I doubt it. It was always a doubly whammy. I think you mean double whammy. I think that Y is supposed to be an E. Just once, I want the story of a foster kid who did not have the world's worst foster experience. It must exist. There must be some kid somewhere who had a good foster experience. I know it's really hard, and I know it's not a fun time for a lot of people, but in fiction, 0 kids ever have a pleasant foster experience. They're always being shunted around by cruel people who hate them. Oh no, but they've been seen by Geraldine and her friends, just absolutely the darkest timeline. People who like you. They immediately lie to Gwendolyn about where they are going, rather than inviting her out with them. We have to have these girls be horrifically bullied, because otherwise we would realize that they are mean girls.
How many of you have ever felt personally victimized by
Darcy and Tory.
They find Fairyland's parking garage, where Diego's vehicle is. Nothing says magic and mystery like a several-story parking garage. Diego is embarrassed that he drives a beater car, and it's like, dude, you are a young adult. That's expected. Like, that's just something that never cropped up in my life. I mean, like, we were pretty poor, so it's like, judging someone else for driving a crappy car never even entered my mind. Like, does it run? Good. Like, can you see the road through the floorboards? And even then, maybe it's fine. Do the seat belts work? Like, and honestly, I don't believe these girls would do that, because they did grow up poor. They probably rode around in plenty of beater cars, and even though one of them does steal vehicles for a living, apparently, I still don't think that she would actually be judgmental about his car. But also, the Latino guy has a crappy car, and I feel like maybe that's a stereotype that I'm just missing. It just feels that way.
But also, just because everything in this book can be pointed to Harry Potter and go, Harry Potter did it, Diego is kind of being a Ron in this situation. He's the friend who's just there to be good and loyal, and also, he poor. Unlike our main characters who used to be poor but are now very wealthy.
Good to know that in Fairyland, where people can turn into horses and wolves, that it's basically just like human land. We're driving around in cars, on highways, going to clubs. You know, I feel like in the Winx Club, they had like cool flying transportation. What, can we at least have that? They even have a gate guard who sits in a little guard booth. Oh my goodness. Such majesty, such magic. What an enchanting fairy tale land we have created. No world building in sight. I'm gonna give this book that if I haven't already. And that means we have bingo. We have bingo straight across. We have Do You Think Your Reader is Dumb? Horrifying Implications, The Free Space, Horny, and Messy World Building or No World Building in Sight. The fact that they are in a fairyland only exists so that they can just not have to explain the vampires and the werewolves and the Pegasi, and that everybody can have elemental magic. We are not interested in going deeper. No questions will be had at this time. Darcy is thinking that they won't see any of the mean boys while they're out tonight, and I'm like, I'm gonna be real surprised if that's true. The town's name is Tucana, or Tucana. I'm sure that's a reference to something, I just don't know what it is. Wow, we have another delightful turn of phrase here. So they go inside and we get described very average, like, bar dining situation, and then they look over and they see Professor Orion, and it says, on the far side of the bar, Orion was sitting knee to knee with a leggy brunette who looked like Beauty on speed. What the fuck does that mean? Of course Darcy is jealous because he's with a leggy blonde on speed, apparently. We also find out that there is no legal drinking age in Solaria, so you can order alcohol whatever age you are. What a charming place. It's exactly like Earth, except for you get drunk at 12 if you want. Here, all their teachers are showing up now. Apparently they went to the restaurant where the teachers hang out. Once again, the girls are just annoyed by sexual harassment. They're talking about the one teacher who makes them wear skimpy bathing suits, and they're just like, yeah, he does it because he's such a perv and he likes looking at our bodies, and they're just annoyed by it. Also, Diego keeps calling her Chica. But oh no, Geraldine also came here. Just because you lied to her and told her you weren't going out didn't mean that she wasn't allowed to go out tonight either. The authors also make Geraldine say weird things like Jiminy Crickets, and now she says, well, bless my cream crackers. I have no idea what that means. We are trying really hard to make this poor girl as cringy as possible to understand why the main characters have to be total bitches to her. She rightfully asks if they changed their minds about going out, why didn't they call her? Because they knew she wanted to go out. Yeah, why didn't you? You bunch of bitches. She made some buttons for their club, but of course the acronym for their club spells out ass, and she's just too innocent and dumb to realize it, and that just makes it even more cringy. They're having her be extra cringy tonight. She keeps saying these weird phrases, which before she said sometimes, but now she's saying every time she has a line. Now she said sweet raisin bran. But then she sees some of her actual real friends outside and leaves to join them. So thank goodness we had that interlude with Geraldine, whom they are all very mean to for no good reason. But she's actually happy because these girls wearing badges that say ass might draw the attention of the heirs away from our heroes for a minute. So they have even more drinks, and then they decide to have even more drinks, and it's Darcy's turn to go get them, so that means she's gonna have to be close to Orion and his weirdly described date. So for some reason, in the middle of a crowded restaurant, very crowded, where there are other teachers, Orion is talking about clandestine murder attempts. So at first she thinks that he's talking about having sex, because the girl's like, I'm gonna do it tonight, and he's like, no, we have to go more slowly. But then he says, that's not what we planned, Orion hissed. If we tried to kill them now, we'll draw attention to ourselves. Nigel, I don't mind you here, but I do need to be able to see the book. Orion spotted her, and he appeared at her side and grabbed her, and it says, the scent of cinnamon and something entirely man washed over me. Entirely man? Entirely man. What does that smell like? Man.
Anything is possible when your man smells like Old Spice and not a lady. I'm on a horse.
How much would you say it smells like man? Entirely. He's mad that she might have overheard him talking about murder in a crowded restaurant. She retreats from Orion to the bathroom, but of course he follows her. She's freaking out. He's got her trapped. He uses magic somehow to stop her from talking, even though he then asks her to tell him everything using coercion. So, can she talk or can she not? So she just spills her guts. She's like, I know you're planning to kill someone. I think it's us. You probably shouldn't do it in a bar. But he doesn't attack her like she thinks he's going to. He just tells her to go home and then leaves the bathroom. Obviously, he has no interest in clearing up this misunderstanding, it's very clearly a misunderstanding, but he's not going to even try to soften this situation or be like, you heard me wrong, or, he's not even gonna make up a lie. He's just gonna be like, oh, you're dumb. I'm leaving, I guess. She's also glad that because he's in the middle of a murder plot, that probably means that the girl he was with wasn't actually his date. Priorities. Then we have a whole sequence with Sophia, it's quite lengthy, where she's just suddenly very drunk and acting silly, and Diego has to take her home. Then the waitress comes by and drops off a couple of drinks, and they're from the creepy teacher, Washer.
No.
They are they drink the drinks, which is just, why would you do that? Because they drink the drinks, toasting to no creeps. Their plan is to have fun and not find any more creeps while drinking a beverage sent to them by a creep. But that's the end of that chapter, and it's just like every other chapter we've had. The girls go somewhere, they encounter creepy persons, and then they're done. We have this murder plot that's attempting to grow in the background, but I have no investment in it whatsoever because I don't care about anybody or this place. I don't care. Which, again, look at the book we're reading. If this was a book that wasn't just trying to be the same thing over and over again, it wasn't trying to be a bag of chips, I would say let's have some escalation, first of all, so we don't keep it on the same level of bullying the whole time. The bullying starts to escalate. Second of all, let's have the girls be intelligent and thoughtful and actually try to deal with some of these situations, even if they fail, instead of just being annoyed by things. Third of all, let's have a few less just absolute creeps around. Can we tone it down so that we don't just have everybody is either lusting after these girls or absolutely terrible to them, or both. And let's also probably not have them just be needlessly mean to this other group who's trying to be their friends. Please, can we not have that? And then finally, I would give Tory and Darcy personalities besides the one who likes motorcycles and the clumsy one. And one of them has blue hair, but I couldn't tell you which. I think it's Darcy. but I'm not positive. Another thing is obviously not have all of the chapters just be the same thing over and over again. Like, we can skip a couple of days. We don't need to see every single day that passes. And if we follow them to a class, we should learn something about the world or the situation that they're in through the class, instead of just the classes also being another excuse to hang out with hot boys and get bullied by them. Yeah, there's a lot that we would need to tweak to make this a solid book with a plot, with interesting characters. But obviously that's not what this book is interested in being, and it never was. So that's always a factor. What is the book supposed to be? It's not lying to us. It's not telling us it's a high fantasy adventure or anything. It knows that it's cheesy schlock, and it's happy to be cheesy schlock. Anyway, that's about as much as I can handle. I can only handle about one of these chapters at a time. So we will catch you later for the next chapter. Bye. Alright, we're back from our Zodiac Academy. It's been a little while since I read this, taking a little break from it, but we gotta get back on board because I've started publishing the videos, so I cannot get behind. We're with Tory, chapter 15. We are so far in the book, and like I still have no idea. Like, I'm assuming that it's just gonna peter to an end with just repetitive chapter after repetitive chapter, and then you're supposed to go read the next book. I hate books like that, by the way. Those are my least favorite. The chapter starts with Tory getting a text from the falling star person, and that person is like, new information, we have to meet. And I'm like, and they're like, where and when? And I'm like, oh yeah, 100% go meet this person. For sure, whatever you do, don't bring any help. You had a whole bunch of people with you just moments ago who would help you in this situation and make sure you didn't have to go alone. But you think that those people are cringy, and therefore they are not cool to hang out with. She's like, I won't wear a pin that says ass on it. And I'm like, I would 100%. I would own the crap out of that. Those pins were blinged up, they were glittery. I would wear a giant glittery pin that said ass in a heartbeat. And that's the difference between me and you, Tory. You see cringe, I see confidence. They agreed to meet Falling Star in an alley behind the bar.
You in danger, girl.
So the girls, of course, we do get a little bit of the cursory, should we go? I don't know, it's scary, should we? And of course they decide to, but they're just like too curious, and like they have to have answers. And I'm like, answers to what? You girls have barely cared about anything that's happened to you since you've been here. You have asked 0 questions. You've taken everything at face value and just been like, well, I guess that's how this is. Why would you just... Now you have questions? I am giving this, why is it always the dumb bitches? Yes, it is definitely, I should have given it before now, but they are getting, why is it always the dumb bitches? They don't ask questions unless it's of a scary stalker in an alley behind a bar. They even talk about how Geraldine, the girl that they don't like because she's too cringy, is coming back later. And they're planning to ditch her again, a second time. They're planning to go to a different bar. Also, these girls are drinking a lot. I don't mean to be super judgy, but like, they're drinking a lot. Like, on the page, drink after drink. And they still seem to be functioning perfectly fine and normally. I wonder if we're gonna find out that like magically, as fairy princesses, they can just drink as much as they want. I don't know. But yeah, Geraldine is coming back, and they are not going to wait for her and get her help. They are just going to ditch her again, and they don't feel sorry about it. Dude, everyone in this school already fucking hates you. Stop trying to be popular with these assholes who think your body is their personal property, and make friends with these people who might be a little bit cringy, but hey, they have access to craft supplies. I love how they capitalize elements when they're just referring to just like the night being slightly chilly. Like, I get capitalizing it if they're referring to their magic system, but I feel like they definitely did like a search and replaced every time it said elements with elements capital E, because she's just talking about how the night is chilly and her little camisole is not protecting her from the cool breeze, but she's calling it elements with a capital E. Again, this author just has to keep reminding you what the characters are feeling in the most clunky and cliched ways. So we've had a paragraph of the girls walking into this alley, feeling very nervous, very edgy, and after that paragraph, it then says, A sense of unease settled on me as we glanced about. You were already uneasy. You're gonna tell me again? I'm like really mad about this today. I don't know why. Just very emotional. You don't need to tell me again. You just told and showed me that they were uneasy about the situation. This line totally could have come from Summer in that book. I can't remember what it is, but it's got all the flowers and the guy named Clover who's a serial killer. I'll put it on the screen. But this line could totally have come from her. As they're walking into this dark, scary alley, Darcy says, "This seems like a pretty shady place for a meeting." Just round of applause for this girl and her deductive skills. And of course, Falling Star messages them and is like, "Oops, never mind, we can't meet after all." But of course, as the girls turn to leave, a shadowy figure is now approaching them because everywhere these girls go, something attacks them. Tory calls on her magic, and oh no, her magic isn't working, so this is probably either one of those creatures that I forget what they are that drain Fae powers, or that is a red herring and this is going to turn out to be like an evil person who has that ability. Conveniently, we don't know enough about anything in this world to really make an educated guess. This person sounds like Jacob Marley though, because it's a shadowy figure with like a rattling sound accompanying it. And I'm just imagining the rattling of chains and like Ebenezer Scrooge. This sentence is just awkward, it needs just a going over. It's not the end of the world, but it'd be nice if it flowed a little bit. I released a scream, throwing every inch of my resolve into placing my feet down as fast as I could. Just look at it again. Look at it again, please. The girls are running, though, from the shadowy Jacob Marley figure. Oh my goodness, this chapter is long. I better read faster because I do not have enough memory card for this. She gets to a dumpster and throws garbage at the figure, but it says a large sack of trash. Sack of trash? I don't know anybody who calls it a sack of trash. It would be a garbage bag, a full garbage bag. But maybe, I don't know, maybe in Chicago? No, not in Chicago. Authors might be British, and I should really research that to find out, because that would explain some things, like their lack of understanding about Chicago in general, and also how American apartment buildings usually work.
All right, after a minimal amount of sleuthing, because it's not really in their author bios, but I found some interviews. Yes, they live in England. And they decided for some reason that they were going to set their book in America and not make any attempts to use American words.
The girls managed to cast a little bit of magic at it to push it back, but it's still coming at them. Also, how long is this alley? Because it didn't seem like it was that big before. It's just the alley behind the bar. But they are now running and stopping and fighting and running again. Like, I think they would have been out of the alley by now. Some people give me a good-natured hard time because I always point out things like my heart beating in my chest. In my chest is technically redundant because where else would your heart beat? Also, I thought to myself, unless you're a psychic, you wouldn't think to anyone else, so myself is unnecessary. And I get it. Those are nitpicks. Those are things that you can do to polish up your book more, and especially if you're looking to get rid of words to hit a word count. But you might be asking, well, Julian, what would you like in exchange? And this line, actually, I like. If you gotta have a heartbeat being described, I prefer this to the standard beating in my chest. My galloping heart thundered in my ears. I like that. It's different. Yeah, it's still a little bit cliched, but it's different. It's different enough versus just the bog standard every single time beating in my chest. One of the boys, Max Rigel, finds them. They got out of the alley and one of the boys grabs them. I don't remember which one Max is. If you gave me money to tell you which of these boys was which, I would have to let you go with your money completely intact. Also, all the heirs are here now, and they're all sitting out at tables in front of the bar, and it looks as though, the book says it looks as though they have been there for a while. So why didn't the girls notice them on their way out of the bar? Max is the siren one, I guess, because he puts his arm around them so he can suck out all of their fear emotions. Max is like, hey, cool, you were being chased, huh? Come over here and tell that to the guys. for some reason. These girls are basically like rag dolls at this point with no bodily autonomy whatsoever. So Max takes them over to the guys, and then he pulls Darcy down onto his lap, and she just goes. But Tory at least is like, yeah, okay, we're leaving. Even though Darcy has started to tell the boys about what they saw, and before she can get her sister, Darius intercepts, and we have to make sure that we know that he's basically busting out of his white t-shirt. These guys wear nothing but white t-shirts, if they're wearing shirts at all, just because that accentuates their extremely muscular bodies. Like, it sounds uncomfortable. The tightness of the shirts that they're wearing sounds uncomfortable. Please buy shirts that fit. I don't know how they get in and out of these shirts. I assume they must just cut the shirt off of them at the end of the day and put on a new shirt in the morning. But he's like, let's have a truce. Let's put our issues aside for tonight to talk about this. And I'm like, put your issues aside. You guys are the ones who have fucking issues. You guys are the assholes who've been harassing these girls nonstop. But yeah, okay, you tell them that you want to have a truce and they have to put their issues aside. Fuck you. So of course, Tory also gets pulled into a lap, Darius's lap. Again, I hate the undertones / overtones of this. It's just gross, the messaging, where she says that she's not happy to have been pulled into his lap. But at the same time, she thinks, but I did go, and so that must mean that I want to. And it's like, excuse me? Just the whole undertones of this book, where just girls are expected to be physically abused by these hot men, and it's fine. It's fine, actually, because the girls actually secretly want it, because the men are all hot. Hello, our culture. Yes, I'm gonna say our culture just because I don't want advertisers to completely abandon my channel. We also get the first mention of intoxication potentially playing a role in her decision making tonight, because they had so many drinks before they went into that dark alley and they were fine. Like, they did not seem intoxicated at all. And you could say, well, it could be blamed for their poor decision making, but these girls make nothing but poor decisions. Like, no. But now she's like, maybe it is the tequila that's making me be okay sitting here on this guy's lap next to the vampire who wants to drain my blood. She's, of course, very turned on in spite of herself, sitting on his lap. So anytime his fingers, like, brush her shoulder, she's, like, popping a lady boner then and there. And she's like, I've always gone for bad boys. But, like, there's no examples of the bad men. Like, we don't get a moment here where she thinks about men that she's dated in the past and what they've done to her. She just thinks about how she's always drawn to bad men. And I'm like, could you prove it, please? As far as I know, you've never dated anyone in your damn life. Like, a little bit of detail would be nice. Okay, this sounds British as well. I had to read this a couple of times. The bartender brings them their drinks, and Darius pressed a wedge of notes into her hand. And I was like, a wedge of notes? What? Like notebook paper? And then I realized they mean like money, banknotes, money. We don't call them notes in America. Randomly, the girls decide, oh, never mind, we're leaving. And then so they get up to leave, but then the vampire guy stops them. And I'm like, why? What is this sequence? Like, why have them go sit on the guys' laps if they're only going to just then get right back up and leave before they've really talked about anything? So the vampire guy's like, where are you going? And Tori's like, we're going back inside. To do what? Dance. Come dance with us. And I'm just like, oh my god, is the rest of this chapter just like them flirting with the guys and dancing? I hate it. And more talking about how sexy just all of them are. It's very reverse harem-y because these girls are just hot for all of the boys. Which is, you know, understandable because they are identical. So if you like that body type, you have your pick of identical hot boys. You could pop their heads off of each other and put them on different bodies, and the only way you could tell is because the skin tones wouldn't match. This doesn't match Darcy's personality at all. So they get inside, and Darcy suddenly becomes very confident, which she has not been. She's been timidly trailing behind her sister this entire chapter and looking to Tory for everything. And Tory was like getting between Darcy and the scary monster in the alley. But now Darcy's like, hey, we're back in the bar. I'm gonna go find a guy to buy us some drinks. And then she just marches up to some guys that she sees. And I'm like, that does not suit her character at all. Like, where did this come from? The only reason that this exists at all is so that the guys can come in and be all territorial. So we had to have Darcy suddenly be very bold and confident because we needed to keep this moving, and we didn't want to make Tory, I guess, probably look like too much of a horn dog since she was lusting after all of the guys outside. So Darcy had to go approach some other guys. And then the girls go out to the dance floor, which is what they said they were coming in here to do in the first place. We had to have that little interlude so that we could see the guys are just so charmingly possessive. I know that that's a thing. Like, intellectually, I understand that some people are attracted to the idea of being possessed by a guy, of being sort of owned by a guy, of being someone's property. Usually in a fictional setting. I don't know if any of those people want to be owned by a guy in real life. But that is another fetish, if you want to call it that. I don't know if it quite qualifies as a fetish. That's another thing that I just do not understand. I find that absolutely the opposite of attractive. If a guy comes in and acts like he owns me, it's not gonna go well, let's just say. It's not gonna go well. Of course the guys come out to dance, and of course it's just the sexiest thing you've ever seen in your damn life. And this scene would be a lot more meaningful if we had had any type of pacing throughout this story. This is where we are in the book, decent time for a dance sequence, for a sexy dance sequence. You know, we talked about in the Cyborg Tinkerer how they had the ball scene far too soon. This is, they're right as far as the timing within the book about where you kind of throw in that sexy dance scene. However, you have to build up to it. They have had zero chemistry, in my opinion, other than horniness, with any of these guys. There has been no slow build of attraction or emotions or interactions. It's been the same, all the way through the book at the same level. And so now we get to the dance scene and it doesn't feel as like sexy and cool and oh, here's a great moment where they finally get to dance with the guys, because there has been no lead up to it. And that's a thing that you got to remember if you're putting in like a sexy dance time, if you're putting in a ball scene, if you're writing a fantasy, you need to earn this type of scene, not just plop it in there. I could let this be as just a sexy moment. We get a description of them dancing all horny together and whatever. But then interrupting that dance is Caleb shoving a drink at her and demanding that she drink. And I'm like, red flags. I mean, this whole thing is red flags. But these guys would be the last people in the entire world I would trust to hand me a drink. Especially if they were super pushy and demanding that I drink it. Speaking of possessiveness, now Professor Orion is back to also be possessive. So we have the first layer of possessiveness with the boys, and now we have Professor Orion standing over there to be possessive over, I think Darcy is the one that he likes, who is being possessed by the boy. It's just layers. I keep forgetting that Seth is the werewolf, because Seth does not sound like a very werewolfy name to me. Seth sounds like a vampire-y name. So the teacher gets Darius to go with him, and then Tory starts dancing with Caleb, who is the vampire who has claimed her as his food source. And she's fine with dancing with him, and she's just casually asking him, like, hey, like, tell me about vampire society and how it's, like, totally normal for you to claim other people as your personal property / never-ending sippy cup. And he does. He just very casually explains vampire society to her, and it's just like, okay, yeah, great. This would be really interesting if it wasn't for the fact that he frequently and non-consensually steals her blood and magic. But the sexy dancing is broken up because Professor Astrom, I can't remember who that is, their voice comes out of the loudspeaker and says that all Zodiac Academy students must return to their dorms. Then the girls get a message from Falling Star that says, I should have warned her too, and somebody bursts in immediately afterward. Everything's just bam, bam, bam. It was Marguerite, who I have no idea who that is, but apparently they're a friend of Geraldine, and Geraldine got attacked because these girls are terrible friends and left her to her own devices, and oh no, Geraldine might die. So now she's being used as a prop so that our heroes can feel bad about something.
King Julian, why am I tied to his stick?
To
trigger any explosives Carl might have set for me.
Oh, yay! I'm a sacrifice!
Tory decides, because she always knows the best exits, being a thief and all, that they're going to go out through the kitchen instead of going out through the main doors like everybody else. And the kitchen door spits them out in an alley. And I'm like, so the place where you were before, where you got attacked by a shadow monster, this is not smart, actually. But they come out of the kitchen into an alley, and there's a motorcycle right there, basically with a sign on it that says, "Steal me." She resists the urge to steal the bike for the moment. I'm going to assume that because we were shown the bike that it is going to matter.
So, yeah, once again, as of editing of this video, I am a few chapters away from the end, and the bike has not come back up. Now, I could see potentially it still coming back as a clue that the girls are like, oh, actually, the perpetrator rode on a bike and therefore couldn't have been blank. I don't know who or what, but I'm suspicious that we were just being reminded that Tory used to steal bikes so that we remember that she's a badass, and that's all that sequence was there for. Otherwise, why the heck do you point out that there's randomly a bike in this alley? Unless it was a plot point that the authors were thinking of using and then decided not to, and like everything else they seem to have gotten bored of, just never took it out of the story. I guess we'll find out.
But they get to the front, and apparently Geraldine was attacked like right outside, directly outside, because she's being loaded into an ambulance right now. Also, Fairyland has regular ambulances and regular paramedics. It really is just Earth with things that have funny names and elemental magic. The girls see Orion, who, when we last saw him, he was leaving with Darius. Unclear where Darius went. But Orion has, like, blood on his hands, but they overhear a paramedic being like, "You saved her life," conveniently. Everything about this scene is super convenient. That everything's just happening in order for the girls to be able to witness all of it. And Orion's like, "Yeah, but it took all my magic." And what does he do? The minute he sees Darcy, he just like dives at her and chomps onto her neck. I thought maybe we might have a moment, just a moment, where he was like less than the super coolest dude ever because his magic was all drained, but no, he goes straight in for the chompy chomp. And of course, the girls don't do anything about it at all, or even try to struggle really. They just accept that this is happening, and she just stands there and waits for her sister to finish being eaten by a vampire. Like, come on, sis, we don't have all night. Can you hurry up and let the professor finish draining your blood and magic already? Finally, Tory decides that he is taking a little bit too much of her sister's magic, so she gets fire ready. She does manage to shoo him off of Darcy, and so he turns to her like, "I'm gonna bite you next." And of course, like just another vampire thinking about drinking Tory's blood, summons her vampire, who is immediately standing there, being all possessive again. And I hate it so much. I'm sure this is sexy to somebody, but it's just so dumb. We have an emergency scene where another girl, who these girls have been being very mean to, is being wheeled away on a stretcher into an ambulance, and we are focusing on who has the right to these girls' bodily autonomy in this moment. Orion offers to give them a ride home, and Caleb is just kind of flipped a switch to be all like sweetly protective, even though, lest we forget, he's only doing this because he views one of these girls as like his property and his ultimate resource for blood and magic. Fortunately, because the girls rode here with friends and those friends have since left, buses were sent at like top speed because this girl was just attacked right outside and literally just carted away in an ambulance, and now there are already buses from the school outside to take all the students home. But they all get on the bus and they're sitting with the boys, and the last thought she has is she wonders where Darius went, because as we know, Darius was last seen with Professor Orion. So, bum bum bum, leave it on a bit of a cliffhanger. It's too bad that I do not care about Darius. Anyway, I need to empty the memory card, and I'll probably take a little breaky break, and then I'm going to get through at least one more chapter today, because I'm behind on reading this thing. I'll see you for the next chapter.
A good boy, a bad boy, a good bad boy, a half good, half bad, half boy.
Actually, I don't need any of that, because I have patrons. Patrons like Valkyrie, Veda, Ingrid, Roma, Pansing Pony, Julius the Nice Dragon, Haley, Sam, Kiara, Kohikaro, Mooney, Maria, Kirsten, Bear, Jojo Bookish, Lauren, Robin, Ursula, Caitlin, KJ, Lafone, Amanda, Celia, Neon, NVM, Alyssa, Deborah, Afra, Melissa, Swamp Goblin Waifu, Sophia, Marween, Kit, Hidden Glade, Light Julie, Belle, Patrick, Anne Sophie, Callison, Ray, Shelby, Zaire, Jesper, Rennie, Scribbling Cat, Savvy, Jenny, Amanda, Lisa, and Sarah. With patrons like that, why would I need anything else?
Hello, ladies. Look at your man. Now back to me. Now back at your man. Now back to me. Sadly, he isn't me. But if he stopped using lady-scented body wash and switched to Old Spice, he could smell like he's me. Look down. Back up. Where are you? You're on a boat.